Members, we formed a quorum. May I call the meeting to order? Please invite the administration to join us. First thing on the agenda, information papers issued since the last meeting. We don't have any. And the second item is the date for our next meeting. Welcome. PS. And also agenda for the next meeting. We have already sent out 2 papers to members. And the next meeting is scheduled for the 18th of May, Monday at 10:45. There are 2 items proposed. First, extension of the service of civil servants, and second, an overview of the civil service establishment strength, retirement, resignation, and age profile. Mr. Lee Chuk-yin proposed a public hearing at the last meeting to invite civil service organizations and members of the public to express their views. In fact, last year we organized a similar hearing with 31 deputations and individuals coming to express their views. So I'd like to consult members. If we want a special hearing, then we have to make special arrangements, and the Secretariat has suggested extending the meeting for a little bit. And we should issue an invitation on the website. If members have no objection, we will do as proposed. And we've also got 2 submissions from some staff or NGOs under the SWD. Some of the staff have not been able to get funding for pay rise. And this is related to the item on adjustment of civil service pay. Can we combine the discussion of the 2, Mr. Lee Chuk-yin? Of course, I agree with you, but some staff unions of NGOs or social welfare organizations may want to make submissions to us. I think it is better for the staff unions concerned to tell us their grievance. If we do it on the 18th of May as well, I don't think we have enough time. So let's see if we need a special meeting or other arrangements. Or we can have a special meeting to discuss the extension of civil service of civil servants, and then we include this item on back pay of NGO staff on the 18th. Yes, we should welcome all relevant staff unions to tell us their views and to make known their grievance. But we have also got other subvented bodies such as the Hospital Authority and also schools or educational institutions. But the Welfare Services Panel has received similar submissions, and the FS panel, the WS panel, has agreed to discuss this. However, the panel has also got a very heavy agenda in May. Perhaps the Secretariat can liaise with us to see whether a joint panel meeting on this matter will be useful. I agree. I do agree that we should discuss this issue and from a wider perspective, not just for social welfare institutions, but for education and healthcare organizations as well. Right. Let's see if we can hold a joint meeting, panel meeting with the Welfare Services Panel in June. Okay, we leave it to the Secretariat. All right, and then the agenda proper use of agency workers. We have got paper from the administration. PS, can you please walk us through the paper, and after that I will allow 5 minutes each for members to ask questions. Thank you. May I reiterate that agency workers refer to manpower supplied by employment agencies under service contracts with bureaus and departments concerned, and work directly under the supervision of the procurement BODs. However, there is no contractual employment relationship between these workers and the BODs concerned, and the procurement is governed by the relevant stores and procurement regulations and financial circulators, and it is also subject to the government's procurement principles of value for money, transparency, open and fair competition, and accountability. In 2010, we issued guidelines to BODs covering the scope of using agency workers, approving authority and wage requirements, as well as the renewal and reletting of service contracts. According to our information, there is a declining trend for the number of agencies employed. The number dropped from 2000 odd to 965 in September 2013. We will continue to monitor the use of agency workers by different departments and bureaus to ensure that these employees are deployed properly, and then there can be enhanced manpower to deal with unforeseen or urgent service needs, unexpected surge in service demands to improve quality of service to the public. Last time, members were concerned about the default of wages by the contractor of LSD public libraries. All procurement departments can decide whether services should be outsourced, and they can also determine the details of outsourcing. As far as we know, for LCSD, the services procured outsourcing is different from the use of agency workers. We know that outsourcing will be discussed in tomorrow's manpower panel meeting, and that is about the government's policy in outsourcing and also protection to contract workers of public libraries. I suggest we leave the discussion of this matter to tomorrow's panel meeting. I pause here. Thank you, Chairman. All right. 4 members: Wong Kwok Heng, Lee Chuk Yang, Martin Liu, and Leung Kwok Hong. First, Mr. Wong Kwok Hong, 5 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. The use of agency workers has always been criticized by me. Every year we do a survey, and we ask the administration to reduce the number of agency workers if the policy can be abolished, or the best. Looking at past statistics, the figure is at an all-time low, 900 odd for this year. Although the government is reducing the use of agency workers, still some are being hired. As I've said in the past, since you need short-term manpower supply, perhaps the administration can consider setting up a department to recruit a group of such employees to deal with service demands from different departments, so that the employees concerned can be stably employed, and that will enhance their sense of belonging to the government. And departments that require manpower to meet short-term service needs do not have to resort to agencies, because there is always the question of exploitation by agencies. will the administration reconsider my proposal, which I have mentioned more than once? Secondly, among these 900 old agency workers, the most frequent user departments are LCSD, Student Finance Agency, and sometimes the Electoral Affairs Office if it is in an election year, and also the Census and Statistics Department. They are the common departments that usually employ the greatest number of agency workers. Not long ago, there was a problem with our central library, all because of agency workers. The agency had problem in paying the workers.
Such examples go to show that if you have another department to supply these workers, there can be a reduction of such labor disputes. My second question for the administration is on the issue of LCSD libraries. Have you consolidated your experience and learned anything from it? Secretary, thank you. First of all, the LCSD incident. I understand you have concerns, and these have been reflected to the LCSD. I believe at the manpower panel tomorrow, there will be an account given to members. The student finance work, well, actually, the LCSD contractor is a different one. It is not an agency as such. Another point is about setting up a department for the supply of workers. We have looked at it. We don't think it's very practical because the short-term vacancies appear at different times in different departments. And as I explained, one of the reasons why we needed to have such manpower is that there is a sudden upsurge in service demands for the short term. If you engage some civil servants here, you just don't know whether there will be sufficient work for them because you don't know when the demand will arise. And also, if there is an upsurge in demand in a number of departments at the same time, then there is also a case of not having enough workers to go round. So this is not an effective way and practical way to use resources. We believe, therefore, it is better to have this agency workers system. The important thing is that we follow our guidelines, and that is agency workers are used only for certain upsurge of demand or short-term work, and usually they will not be engaged for more than 9 months. And we believe such flexibility will allow us to take care of the problem. As for exploitation, the laws of Hong Kong regulate such activities. Well, the last line is really a joke. You say exploitation is governed by Hong Kong laws. So you mean if they follow Hong Kong laws, there will be no exploitation? What is your benchmark? The employment ordinance says nothing about wages. You say you should go for SMW, but does it mean that if people follow the laws, there will be no exploitation? If you look at civil service systems now, there are 4 systems: 1 civil service, 2 NCSC, 3 agency workers, and 4 contract workers. And all 4 types of people working for the government may be in the same office. They may be doing the same job, but there are 4 different levels of pay and welfare. Of course, agency workers have nothing. NCSC workers belong to the 2nd tier, and the contract workers are at the 3rd tier. Why do you want to have different tiers of workers in the same office? Isn't this exploitation? We are already very unhappy with NCSC. We believe you're already exploiting them. Many of them have stayed in the job for 5 years, and yet they are not converted to civil service posts. You say these agency workers may just be, for the time being, you already told us the same thing about NCSC. But then you are still creating another tier out of NCSC. In other words, if they are required for less than 9 months, they are agency workers. If I may refer to the Education Bureau and the LCSD and the Water Supplies Department, I'd like to ask you why these few departments need to make use of agency workers. Well, I would just swallow it if you go for NCSC, and yet you won't even go for NCSC, but go for agency workers. So you let us know a better number with regard to NCSC. But these are 1,000 in number. You are the biggest employer, and yet you are engaging 1,000 agency workers, and I'm not mentioning the 12,000 NCSC. I'd like to ask why the 3 departments have to do it. You say the majority work less than 9 months, but then there are those who work 9 to 15 months. Why is that so? You have to answer all these questions. But overall speaking, we are most unhappy with the government because you are playing a leading role to act as an unscrupulous employer. You are also engaging casual workers. As you know, the private sector is already learning from you, Can I have answers to those questions? Secretary, first I'd like to reiterate, agency workers are not civil service workers. They are workers of agencies. Sometimes they work for the government, but sometimes they also work for other entities. Sometimes at the departments, there may be a higher demand of manpower at a certain time, so we need these workers. But if we go for NCSC, you still have to go through the recruitment cycle. If the job is only for a few months and we mount an open recruitment exercise for NCSC, that would already take a few months. So that is not a practical way to make use of resources and manpower. And talking about exploitation, of course we have the SMW, and we require employment contracts to be signed, and they are protected by the employment ordinance. We believe that would afford overall protection to Hong Kong workers. As for the different departments, can I defer to Mr. Chan, please? Yes, Mr. Chan. Chairman. It was mentioned that certain agency workers worked for more than 9 months. Let me explain to you that actually the vast majority would belong to term contracts. In other words, the agency workers don't work on a continuous basis. When departments require a certain service to be delivered and they require a certain trade of workers, then the agency workers are called in to provide that service. We report that there are over 900 agency workers working in bureaus and departments. I can say that over 60% belong to term contract employees. Moreover, amongst these 965 agency workers, about 20% were deployed to fill short-term manpower gaps. In other words, say we have created a civil service post, or we have converted an NCSC post into a civil service post. We need time for recruitment, and so there will be a short-term gap before we complete the recruitment exercise, and we need manpower to fill those gaps. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to clarify. What do you mean by 60% of them are term contract workers? You have a contract with the agency, but you don't know anything about the contracts between the agency and the workers. Please clarify. And also, why would those 3 departments employ so many agency workers? Can you give a brief reply? Chairman, I said 60% belong to fixed contract agencies. In other words, they don't have to come to work every day. Only when there is a need, the agency workers would ask them to report for duty. So that's even worse. That's even worse. They are underworked. They are long-term casual workers. You can't even call them by name. You have a fixed contract with the agency. Maybe you need one person on Monday and some other persons on Wednesday, so you call the agency to supply the manpower. Is that the case? Chairman, let me add. This is really to meet a short-term service demand. Say suddenly we need to prepare for a project. We may need manpower for a week, so we have to go to an agency to ask for manpower for that week. Okay, if you have more questions, let's wait for the second round, and then Mr. Lam Kwok Hong now. Chairman. So these are actually long-term casual workers. The government can say, okay, I don't have work to engage long-term staff or permanent staff, so I need agencies who can supply the manpower at short notice. I think this is what we saw in 1970s. I would see people squatting outside a big restaurant. They would be like animals. People would go to where they squatted and point to this one, that one, and choose. I think some of the Pakistani or other workers may still be in the same position. I wouldn't say anything, of course, like Mrs. Regina Ip. You said that we were less than parliamentary, but look at what other people are saying. This is a retrograde step. As long as you ask somebody to work for you, then you should have equal pay for equal work. Civil servants are not paid SMW. Do you only have SMW? I mean, you yourself. Of course not. We need to have equal pay for equal work. If people work in the same position, they perform the same duties, the pay should be the same. They do not have bonuses. They don't have experience accumulated. They do not have yearly leave. They do not have overseas education allowance. They do not have any perks, right? If civil servants have $50 per hour, then they should be paid $50 per hour as well. This is the principle of equal pay for equal work. But now you use agency workers and you therefore can duck the responsibility. You say you are not the employer. What about the MTRCL, Mr. Watley? He did a messy job, and yet you paid him in full to ask him to go. How did you do the control? He cheated the Hong Kong government. The bedrock was holding up the project, and he did not say so. He said it was soil. So you treat the grassroots as animals. You just pretend to be blind. When I went to work in the 1970s, people would be squatting outside the dockyard, and the supervisor would come and say, okay, you are quite sturdy, you look like a robust worker, we'll have you for the day. You are just using knife and fork to eat human flesh. I will ask you, all high-ranking officials, to squat, and then I would tell you which committee you go to from day to day. Can we do that? Mr. Paul Tang, people may be taking you to task and you don't like it, and then can you say, Wong Kwok Hing, you take my place and be scolded? You know, you don't want to be scolded like that. You don't want to be sent from place to place on a daily basis. You are engaging in sophistry and you are shameless. Of course, if you are shameless, you have no enemies. The labor side request is clear. You just pay equally for work done. If the work done is the same, you cannot be regressive. Can you do that? You should not hide behind agencies. Why is it that there are so few agencies in Hong Kong? Don't be complacent. It is because the employment law in Hong Kong doesn't afford enough protection. People don't have to protect the workers. In the mainland, in South Korea, people have better protection there. Please, come on. If you say we are not going to be a box office hit if we filibuster, but ask Mr. Wong Kok Heng, isn't this some kind of poison? And the effect of it will be known only after a period of time. I was asked to help in a case. And also, the LCSD is a problem because the Urban Council has been abolished. Mr. Wong Kok Heng, you were an urban councillor, but the pro-establishment members supported the abolition of the Urban Council. If they were the Urban Council, they would be able to ask more questions. I don't need an answer from you indeed. I just wake you up with my remarks. Do you remember that there should be the principle of equal pay for equal work? I'm not talking about welfare.
Do you still remember this, Mr. Tang? All right. Your time is up. Mr. Tang Kapil. Thank you, Chairman. Of course, the number of agency workers have been reducing in recent years, but the unemployment rate is so low. And for grassroots, even those in their 50s and 60s, it's not too difficult for them to find a job compared with previous time. So I'd like to know whether there is a policy direction for bureaus and departments not to employ so many agency workers, or is it just a reality that you cannot employ so many agency workers? Have you analyzed why is there such a reduction? Has there been a policy direction from the top? Or is it because these agencies cannot employ so many agency workers? And your table has excluded two types of staff. First, those on T contracts, those are serving the CGIO, and also those providing services in places like public libraries. So I'd like to know the number of these two categories of staff compared with the previous 2 years. Is the number rising or falling? I believe the reduction in figures in recent years is because of our direction to departments that for expected and also long-term demand, then they can either employ civil servants for the latter service demand, and for the former, they can consider using non-civil service contract staff, because we have stressed that agency workers are for short-term service demands only. I think this is not related to the reason of agencies not being able to supply enough agency workers. And for the ZGICO and also public libraries, perhaps I can ask Mr. Chen to explain. Thank you. For IT contract staff, the number of employees in 2014 we had about 2,400 odd. The CGICO or the ITC explained to members at the last panel meeting. This is because of the unique nature of the IT industry. The administration on bureaus and departments need core IT staff to be responsible for planning, coordination of all IT-related services. But for individual projects, T contract staff are employed. to provide support. As regards public libraries, the number of staff from service contractors should be reducing, because many LCSD posts in public libraries have been turned into civil service posts. There are over 200 such posts. So there is a clear trend for staff supplied by service post filled by service contractors to become civil service posts. I think I have to clarify. The creation of civil service posts is mainly to replace non-civil service contract staff. Service contractors provide outsourced employees for placing of library items onto the shelf, and also for recompilation of library collection items, and for establishment of new libraries. We need extra manpower for the short term for such duties. Can you tell us the number of workers employed? At present, I don't have it with me. Right, that ends the first round. Anyone more? Any more members? Mr. Tankabio, second round. I have a simple question to ask. We know the 011 envelope target. So there are agency workers, contract workers, and so forth. I have received complaints from LCSD swimming pool staff. Now you have over 900 agency workers. Is this related to the 011 policy at all? Will all these be reviewed in view of the 011 policy? So I'd like to know the progress. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, 011 is for the next fiscal year, so we are not sure about the situation yet. And this indicator is for the department to achieve 1% savings. As regards how it can be done, well, it depends on the department or bureau concerned. They don't necessarily have to cut manpower. It depends on how the savings can be achieved in the overall expenses, and each bureau and department will consider the impact on its operation. Mr. Tankapio, to follow up on my previous question, I know that the administration has asked bureaus and departments not to resort to using agency workers too lightly. But for our own background brief, from 2009 to now, yes, the number has reduced. Back then, many departments were using a lot of agency workers. Department of Health, 323, now only 50 left. Education Bureau, 285 in 2009 and 94 now. LCSD, 299 in back then and 68 now. These are the top 3 departments employing agency staff. I'd like to know the reason for their substantial reduction in the use of agency workers. How have service demands been met? Is it because the jobs are not outsourced or given to non-civil service contract workers, or because of creation of civil service posts? Mr. Chen, please see if you can supplement. I don't think it's easy to give a general reason, because for non-civil service contract posts, we understand that if the work is long-term in nature, they should be replaced by civil servants. Perhaps for these duties there was few occasions where there was a sudden upsurge of workload, or perhaps for libraries there was a review of the operation. Perhaps it's due to a change in management model, and as a result, less agency workers have been required. Mr. Chen, do you have anything to add? Yes. Yes, many agency workers are meant to fulfill short-term service demands. Many bureaus and departments have very actively recruiting more staff. They have expedited the recruitment process. As a result, the manpower demand has been filled. Mr. Lee Chek-yan. This is about the next agenda item. I want this to be distributed to members. The item on lifeguards. Do we really have such a great demand for short-term manpower supply? For the three examples I quoted, can you tell us why agency workers were employed? For instance, on what occasion when 90 agency workers had to be employed by the Education Bureau? Or you're not talking about the number of men days, or rather, for instance, in a particular week you may need 90, or on a certain day you have need a dozen. So can you tell us how you compile the statistics? I take the EB as an example, Education Bureau as an example. In every new academic year, the Bureau has special needs. For instance, in 2014, the S1 attainment test, and also there was also a survey of KG teachers and also number of students, and S1 place allocation system. There was a review, and there were also a number of vacancies in the EB. So a lot of recruitment work had to be done, and extra manpower was needed to support the recruitment exercise. And many agency workers were employed to provide clerical support at peak times to handle daily work. For recruitment, I think you should know beforehand when civil servants would retire. You know for sure that somebody will retire in half a year's time. Why don't you recruit a new staff to replace him? Why do you have to employ an agency worker to fill the post short term? P.S. Although the departments know well beforehand when staff members would retire, but there are some unforeseeable circumstances in recruitment. For instance, if the number of applicants is numerous, then the department may take longer than expected to process all applications. As members know, the number of applicants in open recruitment of civil service posts are quite substantial, and there are constraints in manpower. handling. So even though we've decided to to conduct a recruitment exercise, sometimes the process may take longer than expected. And even if we have sent out an offer, the candidates concerned may have to resign from their previous job, and notification period is required, and the new staff member may not be immediately available, so we need to employ an agency worker to fill the post concerned for a short term. Now that means your establishment is not sufficient. If your establishment is adequate, of course, in an organization, workload will not, even in a year, there are bound to be surges.
If the establishment is at a correct level, then even when the workload is high, you would still have enough manpower. But what you are doing is to suppress the establishment, so that when there is a high workload, you go for agency workers. I think the agency worker mechanism is not necessary, and it just goes to show that the establishment or strength of the civil service is insufficient. Let me please respond to this point. The establishment is based on work requirements. Usually we have an establishment that can take care of our service needs, but as I explained a few times, at certain departments there will be short-term manpower gaps, and most importantly, sometimes there may be unforeseen or urgent work to be done. As Mr. Chan was saying, like at the Education Bureau, it may like to conduct surveys, and it doesn't happen all the time. At a certain time, therefore, a big number of people would be required to do a survey, and the existing civil service establishment cannot take care of that kind of urgent service demand. Okay. I think we have spent a lot of time on this issue. If there are no other questions, we'll go to the next item. Manpower situation and request for grade structure review of civil service lifeguards. We have two papers. Again, I'd like to ask Mr. Paul Tang, Secretary for the Civil Service, to take us through the paper. Thank you, Chairman. On the manpower situation and the request for GSR of the Civil Service lifeguards, let me first of all explain the policy on GSR, and then I would ask LCSD staff to explain to you the situation at the department. With regard to GSR, in 2007, we started to have the improved civil service pay adjustment mechanism, or the improved mechanism. There were 3 surveys, and that is the pay level survey, and also the pay trend survey, and also the civil service entry pay survey. And the civil service pay level survey is done once every 6 years. With these 3 mechanisms, we can make sure that the civil service pay and private sector pay are broadly comparable. With the implementation of the improved mechanism, we believe the non-directorate civilian grades in the civil service can be kept broadly comparable with that of their private sector counterparts, so that we can retain, recruit, and also incentivize people to work with the government. According to that policy, GSRs will only be considered for individual non-directorate civilian civil service grades under the following circumstances. That the grades concerned, number 1, have proven and persistent recruitment and retention difficulties which cannot be resolved through the regular pay surveys under the improved mechanism. Or 2, there are fundamental changes to the job nature, job complexity, and level of responsibilities of the grades. As for assessment of the principles, when we consider whether there are retention and persistent recruitment difficulties, we will look at the objective figures. Say, for example, in the past 3 to 5 years, whether there have been recruitment difficulties so that there are vacancies, and whether the applications and people employed compare favorably with each other. We have looked at this particular grade for the last 3 to 5 years, and whether there has been a high wastage problem. And as to the second criterion, whether there are fundamental changes to the job nature, job complexity, and level of responsibility of the grades, so that the grade cannot function effectively. I'd like to point out here that because of changes in public expectations and social circumstances and also technological advancement, the workload and job nature of grades may change over time, but these are not fundamental changes. It's just like other jobs in society. Civil service jobs will not remain always the same. And with public expectations changing and policies changing, these of course happen to meet societal needs. And plus, there may be technological advancement, and therefore duties of civil servants may change over time. However, every grade can only serve society according to what it was designed for. But even if there is evolution of duties, it doesn't mean that there are fundamental changes to job nature. So overall, we'd like to emphasize that the purpose of GSR is to tackle the recruitment and retention difficulties of the grades concerned, and whether there are fundamental changes to the job nature, job complexity, and level of responsibility of the grades. And GSRs are not the panacea to solve all problems. If there is an increase in workload, if there are promotion prospect difficulties, then these should be resolved by manpower management policies, like re-engineering of workflow or other management policies, maybe also by the wider use of IT, etc. I think I should pause here. I can ask Ms. Lee to let you know the situation at the LCSD. Okay, Ms. Lee. Chairman, the LCSD has always responded to the request of the lifeguards and also looked at the GSR, and we have always conducted a very close liaison with the relevant unions. As the Secretary for the Civil Service said just now, the GSR, if it is to be done, must comply with two principles. And the first one is that the grades concerned have proven and persistent recruitment and retention difficulties. When we review objective data, including recruitment, vacancies, applications received, number of applicants, and people who accept employment, and also the overall unnatural wastage over the past period, we are of the view that with regard to the lifeguard grade, there is no difficulty in recruitment and retention. That is why the grade cannot comply with the first criterion for GSR. And also, since the job nature, job complexity, and responsibility of the lifeguard grade have not seen any fundamental changes, so it does not comply with the second criterion for a GSR. However, with regard to operational needs, the LCSD will closely watch the deployment of manpower, and we would also roll out the measures to strengthen the manpower of the grade stated in paras 4 to 8. And of course, we have in mind the safety of swimmers and water sports users. So we will, from time to time, review the lifeguard service level at these places from time to time in order to have an overall review. In 2013, we set up the working group to review the situation and to collect views from the lifeguards and also the trade unions. After this review, which has been done for 3 years, we have already increased over 160 posts and involving an extra $14 million in expenditure every year, so that we can engage more NCSC seasonal lifeguards for existing pools and beaches. And also, if necessary, we can add civil service lifeguard posts. Say, for example, from 2011, we had 893. Now it has climbed to 1133 in March 2015, a jump of 27%. In 2015-16, the department will again create 21 civil service artisan beach swimming pool posts in order to enhance manpower at swimming pools. Apart from having more seasonal lifeguards and civil service lifeguards, we have also rolled out a series of human resource management measures. Say, for example, in recruiting 2015 swimming season seasonal lifeguards, the pay would be adjusted upwards to $14,815 or an increase of $700 so as to attract more qualified persons to become seasonal lifeguards at beaches and enhance the overall manpower supply of lifeguards. In terms of career development, the LCSD has different posts. If there are lifeguards who belong to the artisan grade, if they comply with the entry requirements, they can apply to be senior artisan pool and beaches, and also senior artisan water sports, and also artisan 3. Artisan 3 has the pay scale from MPS 7 to 11. The LCSD will also make use of different channels to liaise closely with civil service grades and also NCSC grades in order to know their views and take follow-up actions when necessary. This is my supplement. Thank you. We have 5 minutes each for members to ask questions and to have a reply. Wong Kwok Heng, Lee Chek Yen, Tan Ka Pew. Wong Kwok Heng. Thank you, Chairman. The department said that the GSR cannot be triggered. I find this regrettable. You say it cannot be triggered because there are no fundamental changes to the job nature, and 2, you have no recruitment difficulties. That is why you think the status quo can stay. I think this goes to show that the CSB and the LCSD are still calcified in their thinking, and you are not moving ahead with the times. You have not accepted the strong demand of various trade unions. This has a negative impact on the morale of lifeguards. I have assisted them many times in order to have face-to-face negotiation with you, and we had spent so many hours on these meetings. They strongly criticize you for putting lifeguards in the artisan grade. This is already outdated. They save lives. They save lives in water. And we are talking about some golden seconds within which a life must be rescued. When you call them artisans, this is really outdated. It is really not in line with the times. You think they are just a piece of machinery. You think they are repairing machinery. How can you call them artisans? They rescue lives. They must rescue a life within some golden seconds, and this is some kind of sacred duty. How can you call them artisans? They will not be convinced that they are just artisans. How can you maintain their morale? So, Secretary, can you answer me this question? Can you call ambulancemen artisans? Do you think you can recruit ambulancemen if you put them in the artisan grade? And also, can you recruit firemen if they are called artisans? Of course, I cannot put lifeguards on the same footing as ambulancemen and firemen. I know that may not be an apt comparison, and firemen and ambulancemen might not like this kind of comparison. I know I cannot draw an equal sign between them, but lifeguards rescue lives, As you know, if somebody gets drowned, it is very dangerous. So they are exercising a sacred duty, and they have to apply a lot of professional knowledge when they do so. But you force them to be just an artisan, and you still want to maintain that kind of outdated nomenclature. Secretary, you have to answer this question, and the LCSD also has to answer. Secretary, I will defer to Ms. Lee for the details, but I'd just like to make 2 points. With regard to the GSR, those two are the criteria, and they apply to all grades within the civil service. So we understand that there may be this aspiration, but from the angle of the CSB, we must act by certain objective criteria, or else it will be very difficult for us to tackle this issue. We were talking about recruitment difficulties or not, and job nature change or not. These are objective criteria.
And I have reiterated that boosting morale and improving establishment cannot be dealt with by GSR. In-service training and more recruitment are, and also improved communication between the management and staff can also boost morale. So this may not really need a GSR. Of course, as you said, lifeguards cannot be compared to firemen and ambulance because they belong to different grades, and firemen and ambulance are part of our disciplined services. Whether there's any change in the duties and nature of work of lifeguards, that's the most important consideration. We do not just look at the grade lifeguards belong to. Ms. Lee. Thank you, Mr. Wong, for your comments. The administration has got very frequent meetings with lifeguards to discuss the manpower and also the possibility of a GSR. At meetings, they have asked very clearly whether lifeguards can be delinked from the artisan grade and become a separate grade. But to do so, we must fulfill the two principles for conducting a GSR. Regarding the recruitment and retention of lifeguards as civil servants, we do not have any difficulties according to our information. And for all along, lifeguards are responsible for life saving. And of course, the qualifications required has been changed from a bronze medal to one for beaches and swimming pools, and this is all because of change in the relevant international organization is upgrading in skills. There has been no change in the duties and nature of work of lifeguards, and therefore the lifeguards cannot fulfill the second criteria for a GSR. So we will see whether we can address the manpower issue. According to lifeguards, the manpower is not sufficient. In between April and October, that's the swimming season. In some beaches, those in remote areas in particular are not very welcome by lifeguards. Some lifeguards do not want to be on duty there, so there might be some vacancies. So starting from the 2015 swimming season, we will put in place some new measures. The seasonal lifeguards for beaches will be raised to be $700 higher than lifeguards serving in swimming pools. So this year there will be some real improvement, and this year the recruitment situation is also better than what it was last year. As at mid-April, in our beaches we do not have any vacancies, and the vacancies the number of vacancies is about 30 odd in all 18 districts. So when the peak season comes in August and October, there will be better supply, because even secondary school students and tertiary school students will work part-time during the summer. All right, a simple question. Well, staff unions and myself have a very strong demand. If you do not start a new grade, then you should do away with the word artisan. So you should just recruit lifeguards, for instance. Can that be done? Well, the post itself is called lifeguard, and the grade is in the artisan grade. In fact, the LCSC has got many artisan staff members. For instance, those for maintaining lawns, those to take care of animals and to look after trees. That's exactly why they should not be considered together as other staff, those responsible for tree maintenance and lawn and animal maintenance, because the duty mainly is to save lives. Mr. Wong Ko-heng, the staff unions concerned has been fighting for more than 10 years. They have gone on strike. They have protested. They have organized rallies. But the problem is not resolved. From time to time, vacancies have caused some beaches or swimming pools to be temporarily closed. So the problem is their morale is low, and you still want to call them artisans. This shortage in manpower would affect the safety of swimmers. The LCSD talked about a working group setup and also a 27% increase in manpower. But you have to remember that in 2004 there was a cut in 30% as far as the number of staff is concerned. But you have to bear in mind the growth in population and immobile population. Not only the swimmers are not just Hong Kong people. I don't know how many of the 10 million visitors from the mainland also go to our swimming pools and beaches, because their manpower situation is not reverted back to the 2004 level. You talked about 21 new posts created. Now, these are not civil servants. You cut 21 civil servants posts, and you increase 21 non-civil service posts. So I'd like to know whether it is a net increase. Yes, there were extra manpower added last year after the strike. And the problem is we don't have enough lifeguards. You have totally disregarded the safety of swimmers. Some security guards are deployed to inspect swimming pools. At diving pools, security guards are there to be on the lookout. So have you really, the manpower shortage so bad that you're doing that, and you call lifeguards artisans? There are only 3 ranks in this grade, and that's over. So how attractive is this job going to be? So after you have worked for 3 years, you have attained your maximum salary point, and there will be no more increments if you're in the artisan grade. In the professional grade, there will be a progression in the pay scale and also the question of dignity. So I'd like to ask the administration whether life saving is a profession. If it's just like tree maintenance and protection, then how much do you really value swimmers' life? So you talked about a change in job nature and recruitment difficulties. The question is, You've been wrong right from the beginning. Life-saving should be regarded as a profession, just like the work of an ambulanceman. All right, you want an Innovation and Technology Bureau? Well, there is no recruitment and retention difficulties, no change in job due nature is just a political decision. So, how do you face this manpower shortage? How come there is no improvement in the manpower situation? That additional tournament post is really tricky. And when can you restructure the grade so that you can give them professional dignity? For GSR, there must be a real change in the job nature. Of course, the nature is life-saving, and this post has always been subsumed under the artisan grade. And in LCSD, there are different types of artisans, some of which require specific qualifications. Since there is no fundamental change in the nature of the job itself, we don't think a GSR is warranted. Ms. Lee, thank you. Mr. Lee, for your question. The term artisan itself is not to belittle the duty of a lifeguard. Other artisans have to perform important duties, which we do attach a lot of significance. For instance, protection of animals and maintenance of trees, they also require different qualifications, and we also respect the life-saving professionalism of lifeguards. Mr. Lee said that in 2004 we cut some posts because there was a full review back then. The posts cut involve, for instance, at the top of water slide. Top of a water slide, the main duty was to maintain order there, and we believe it need not be done by a lifeguard, and so we replaced the post by a security guard to keep order. And for black spots of for life-saving, such as artificial hills, we have removed them from our swimming pools. And in the past, swimming pools run by the two municipal councils did not have the same establishment, so we rationalized them. In 2003-04, at peak season, we cut 216 posts, and non-peak season 254 posts. And some lifeguard representatives said that 400 posts were cut. That was not correct. Mr. Lee said security guards were deployed to patrol our swimming pools. This is not true. Security guards are never deployed to patrol our swimming pools for life-saving. All life-saving duties are performed by our lifeguards. But they have confirmed one point which is very shocking. At the top of a water slide is a security guard. That confirmed my remarks that some duties have been assigned to security guards instead. So at the top of a water slide, you should, the public should comment. Now, if someone fell from a water slide, then will the security guard there have to shout to a lifeguard to help the one who is drowning, instead of he jumping into the pool to help him? And do you know how overcrowded our swimming pools and beaches are? And over 200 posts were cut, and you have only added another 200. 10 years have passed. So the manpower level is just back to the 2004 level, if not worse. So the FCSD has no regard for lives at all. Security guards are tasked to man our water slides. Can this be done? Will this work? And Ms. Lee claimed that they really respect lifeguards and all artisans are skilled. Please don't just pay lip service to this. You don't respect them. You regard them as artisans while they want to be treated as professionals like the ombudsman. They want recognition, yet you refuse to give them recognition where it is due. You just talked about respecting them. Now, if you respect them, can you give them a few more ranks for promotion? For artisans, there are only 3 ranks. This can be confirmed by the PS. Now, if artisans can be given 2 more ranks, is it possible? Of course not. And therefore, lifeguards must be taken out from the artisan grade. So I'd like to ask the PS whether he admits that there's been no manpower improvement in the past decade and it's ridiculous to ask security guards to man water slides.
I will respond to 2 points and I will defer to Ms. Lee. First, from what I understand, the skills required for lifeguards are the same here in Hong Kong as in other countries. Whether they should be compared to ambulancemen and firemen, I don't think so. Secondly, whether we can change the grades. There are objective criteria. If there is a problem, of course, we can review it, but we must have regard for manpower and whether there are retention difficulties. Even if there is no GSR, we can still add manpower if there is a service demand. I hope you can understand it. It is not that we have to have a GSR in order to tackle salary problems or retention problems, because we are using public money and we always need objective criteria to do all these things. Ms. Lee, would you like to add? Yes, please. The task at the top of the water slides, it is for lifeguards to make sure that people use the water gas in an orderly manner. But actually, lifeguards remain at the bottom of the water slides because when people reach the bottom of the water slides, they would be in water, and there are enough lifeguards to assist these people if they cannot stand up and leave the water after sliding down from the water slide. In other words, if there should be anyone drowning upon sliding down from the water slide, the lifeguards would be at hand to help. In 2013, we set up the working group on lifeguard manpower review, and we talked to trade unions, managers, middle management at the beaches and swimming pools, and also senior lifeguards. We discussed the manpower situation at the beaches and pools. In the last 3 years, we have already arrived at a decision to add 160 lifeguard posts. And we will have regard for the actual need and environment at each beach and pool. Say if the utilization rate has risen and if there are design problems, and also whether there is glare that will make it difficult for lifeguards to attend to certain corners, then because all these would have an impact on swimmer safety, and if that happens, we will add manpower, and in fact we have done a lot in this regard. There has always been a continuous increase, and in 2015, because of such operational needs, we are going to have 20-odd more seasonal lifeguards to work in both peak and non-peak hours. This is over and above the 21 civil service posts that I reported. Next, Mr. Tan Kah-Pui, and then Leung Kwok Hong and then Lee Cheuk-Yen will have a second round. Thank you, Chairman. Lifeguards and trade unions have requested a GSR, and they would like to have their own grade. This is about professional recognition. It will also help you stabilize the lifeguard team. The job will be more attractive and stable. I am a district councillor of the Islands District. Lifeguards have called in sick, and because there is not the team of lifeguards required, the beaches and pools have been closed. I am particularly sensitive to this because I am an Islands District Councillor. And they are not just asking a GSR just because they want to keep their jobs. We are really talking about protecting the public here. I have heard the view of the trade union, and also they have complained to us that over the last 10 years, the department has increased their demand on the obtaining of awards. So, in fact, they are not just artisans. They should be regarded as an independent professional grade. There is always a lack of lifeguards, and this is not acceptable to the public. You may say you have created NCSC posts, but why is it that beaches and pools have been lacking in lifeguard services? This is because the conditions of work are not attractive enough. Now we have more or less full employment, so how can you expect to be able to recruit seasonal lifeguards? I can't trust you when you say it is not difficult to recruit lifeguards. So I think you have to create this professional civil service team that will have continuous professional development, or else beaches and pools would continue have to be closed because the lifeguards do not come along. In this letter that has been tabled, it is in 2004 there has been a big cut of lifeguard manpower by 30%. I have not heard you denying it. So that is the fact. In 2004 there has been a cut of 30% of manpower. Have you redressed the situation now? My understanding is over the last 10 years we have opened about 2 to 3 new pools, and there are many more swimmers in our beaches. What is the ratio now between lifeguards and swimmers for the last 10 years? You say you have recruited 27 more, but compared to the 30% cut in 2004, what is the comparison? Secretary, I will ask Ms. Lee to give you the details, but I will respond by making 2 points. Number one, skills upgrading. That does not require a GSR. As I explained, because of change in service needs, of course, colleagues would have to upgrade their skills. In the past, they would only have to have a brown or bronze beach lifeguard award, but now they may be required to have a silver award. So this is really job-related, and there would not be enough justification for a GSR just because they need another award. With regard to civil service lifeguards, the situation is quite stable, and I'm talking about recruitment as well as retention. And for seasonal lifeguards, that is where the problem lies. But I think Ms. Lee has explained that the department has increased the pay so as to attract more people to be seasonal lifeguards. Ms. Lee? Thank you, Mr. Tang, for your views. In 2004, and that review, we have cut about 200 lifeguards in the peak periods and a reduction of 150 odd in the non-peak periods. In the past few years, at the working group, and after the review, we have increased over 160 odd lifeguards in the past 3 years. And with regard to civil service lifeguards, we have increased by more than 200. In other words, in terms of civil servant lifeguards and NCSC lifeguards, we have added more than 300 people. So when you look at the 2004 cut and the addition in recent years, I think we have outdone the cut in 2004. By how much? By how much can we have the net increase, especially with regard to civil service lifeguards? If you talk about the peak seasons, we cut about 200 odd and 150 odd for non-peak seasons. And the addition now is, in terms of civil service posts, we have 200 more. When we add civil service lifeguards, we are talking about the whole year round. They are permanent staff. And talking about the please look, in 2004, how many lifeguards were civil servants? And in 2014, how many lifeguards are civil service lifeguards? Can you just give me that figure? We tally our figures according to the peak seasons and non-peak seasons. But don't you have civil servants figures? I'm not talking about NCSCs. Okay, civil service lifeguards in 2011, 893. In 2015, 1,133. Okay, 1,133. Is it that you had that figure in 2004? Do you have figures for 2004? Because it was a very special year. I'm talking about civil servants. People say there has been a cut of 30%. We don't have the information at hand. I can go back and look. Let me tell you why I'm asking that question. Because when we now have almost full employment, you are still applying the logic of agency workers of the last item. How come you expect people not to work for a half year and wait for your call to work in a particular season? This does not work when we have full employment. So how can you make sure that there will be enough manpower? You can only do so by boosting the civil service team so that you always have the people there in non-peak and peak seasons. Because there won't be people sitting around for half a year and wait for your call just to work in the peak season. Okay, she doesn't have the figure for 2004. Please let us know when you have it. Next, Mr. Liang Kwok Hong. After listening to the figures, there was a cut of 300 in 2004, and then in 2011 they added some people, and then in 2014 they eventually went back to the same level. Between 2004 and 2014, you must have improved your services to the public, right? There must have been the opening of more pools and more facilities. That must be the case. In 2004, there were not so many people, and the ratio between lifeguard and swimmers should have risen nowadays. In other words, this is regressive. Of course, people would be angered when you also cut the numbers. Number two, the market has failed, and the market has become disorderly. People are telling you, or the market is telling you, that people with the professional skills just won't come and apply for the job. That is why you do not have a big enough team, and that is why the market has failed, and therefore the government should intervene, or else why would you have you? Why would we want you here? The undersecretary, the political assistants, are they just paid market rate? The undersecretary was engaged as a political benefit or award. How can the PS compare with the undersecretary? You cannot compare an apple with an orange. If nobody would be the undersecretary, nobody would be the political assistant, of course you would adjust the salaries so that you can fill those posts. political assistants were given a very big salary, and when people heavily criticized it, you reduced this to $100,000. In fact, the political assistants are earning more than the permanent secretaries. We started the PAOS in 2002, and then in 2004 you had to review it because nobody came forward. The logic is totally messy. You apply 10 different logics to the same thing, and you pick and choose when you want to favor some people. There is full employment now, but the market is not operable. Many people have read the certificates for life-saving, but they don't want to come along. You know, in the private market, people are paid more. People contract out, and the lifeguards also have to wash the swimming pools. They don't want to get any relief from you. They are working in the private market. However, some people are also regretting it because, again, the private market is following your example by going for agency employment, and some people in the end are not paid. So the market has failed and you don't intervene. You blame everything on the market. What kind of a bureau are you? Why don't you just wind up?
Shouldn't the CSB take care of the welfare of employees? Usually it's a strike a balance because human resources are human lives are invaluable. Do you want somebody to be drowned? Do you want people to follow the example of Mr. C, the old gentleman who used a fake ID card to get a job? Do you want Mr. Z to commit suicide and his wife to jump from height before you are willing to reform the system? Lifeguards are trained for life saving, and yet they cannot save themselves. So, Mr. Tang, if you are drowned when you are swimming, nobody may save you if you talk like this way. Because the market has failed. Where British Hong Kong government, it would not argue with us. It would just increase the pay. But no, this is a political warfare. Well, civil union organized by the CTU, well, it should be axed. Well, in 2004, when I joined, their action, I almost drowned. I had to swim for 100 meters, and they saved us. Now, if you go to see a doctor, can the nurse tell you that, well, I can't save you because I am not professionally qualified yet? So, do you understand? The human lives are invaluable, and the government is ridiculous. So what are you doing? An elderly man, 73 years old, had no money to support himself, and he is now jailed. And for young people, what is your question, Mr. Leung? The question is, does this government have a heart? Do you know the human lives are invaluable? So you count your money, but you do not treasure human lives. Your time is up, Mr. Leung. Do you have anything to respond? P.S. Well, the answer is very simple. When the LCSD recruits lifeguards, they don't really have a recruitment problem. The problem is with the demand for seasonal lifeguards. I know the situation is improved for 2015. Let's see how it turns out. Mr. Leung. Second round, Mr. Lee Chuk-yen. Only Mr. Lee Chuk-yen has raised his hand. Mr. Leung Kong, if you have further questions, perhaps you should go for a second round. Mr. Lee Chuk-yen. Well, they couldn't even tell us the number of civil service lifeguards in 2004. According to the union, the total number of manpower was cut from 2,400 to 1,580. So no matter how you put it, there is a problem with your manpower. Even with all the posts you have created, the manpower is more or less what you had in 2004. But you have to bear in mind the number of new venues. There are over a dozen new venues. But of course, the union is happy that outsourced pools are now being managed by the LCSD. That's the best. We are very against outsourcing. You have additional venues, but then the establishment is just the same. And swimming pools are more crowded. I cannot accept that at water slides you have a lifeguard nearby. Of course, you should have a lifeguard nearby. But lifeguards are patrolling different areas of the pool, and the most dangerous sport is the water slide, and you don't have a lifeguard stationed there. Now, if you replace that security guard with a lifeguard, you can save one security guard. Of course, it's okay if you always have a lifeguard stationed at the bottom of a water slide. It is impossible that you have one security guard at the top of the slide and one at the bottom. No, of course, the lifeguard is patrolling the pool, and he has to be responsible for all the spots in the pool. You don't really treasure human lives, and there is no professional respect for lifeguards. And I worried for the prospect of lifeguards. I think even for this year, they are tricking us. This 21 posts is just a trick. You have cut 21 non-civil service contract posts to civil service posts. Of course, it's something good, but you have not really added new manpower. The Secretary for the Civil Service is here. He talked about 011. I want the Secretary to explain to us. Given that you have to cut expenses by 1%, how can you increase the number of lifeguards? So this 011 is really a trap. Given that there is to be a 1% cut in expenditure next year, are you going to have more lifeguards? As I explained, how individual departments will achieve 011, where to make the cuts, it is for departments to decide. I can answer this question on behalf of the director of LCS. I'm sure the director will consider different issues before making a decision. All right. More venues, less manpower, 21 posts, and also the prospect. I want Ms. Lee to answer. I don't want Mr. Tang to intimidate his subordinates. All right, in 2004, the number of posts cut. After a review, posts regarded as being unnecessary were cut. For instance, with improvement in black spots, the post was no longer needed. And crowd control at the top of the water slide, yes, that post was cut and replaced by a security guard. But for every water slide, there is a dedicated lifeguard responsible for life-saving at the bottom of the water slide. So we have not cut any life-saving posts at all. Now, in the past, we had posts at beaches for shark surveillance. However, in many of our beaches, we have got shark nets, and therefore such posts were no longer required. What about the additional a dozen or so venues? Well, for the posts cut in 2004, they were cut because they were considered unnecessary, and life-saving posts were not affected at all. And since 2004, we've also completed some manpower review in 2007-08. We added in between 20 and 30 posts at peak seasons and non-peak season. In the past 3 years after manpower review, we've also added 160 odd posts. The department keeps a very close eye on manpower demand and also the actual situation in different pools and beaches. Mr. Lee Chek-yan said that we have got new venues. In the light of this, we have added manpower by means of permanent posts and also seasonal posts. So we have gradually increased the number of posts in the light of actual needs. So in 2015-16, we will continue to liaise with the staff union and also different stakeholders to review manpower supply. As for a career prospect, we have different posts for civil service lifeguards to apply for. For instance, if they can fulfill the entry requirements, they can apply for a senior artisan swimming pool and beaches, and also senior artisan water sports center. No, I am saying that you have to cut expenditure by 1% given the 011 requirement. So can you really have more lifeguards? It's true that the department has to achieve savings according to the 011 requirement, but we will certainly consider the priorities in areas where service would not be compromised. So we give them first priority, but we will try not, as far as possible, to compromise service quality. But if just in case that it has to be done, we'll ensure that swimmers' safety would not be at risk. We'll ensure that there is sufficient manpower. Thank you. Mr. Lang Guo-hong, second round. May I follow up on Mr. Lee Chek-yan's question on manpower? The union is saying that the manpower situation is inferior to international standards. I'd like to know whether there are objective criteria for the public to know. For instance, the number of lifeguards required in a pool to ensure safety of swimmers. Are there objective standards? For a big pool, 50 meters long, there are 4 lifeguards. 2 on stand and 2 on patrol, and we have also got senior lifeguards to direct how other lifeguards should conduct their life-saving duties and to drill, and so we have a senior lifeguard overseeing them. So when a pool is designed, we have a manpower scale, but we'll also consider other factors, of course. For pools that are as deep as, say, 2 meters, such as the one at Kowloon Park, Victoria Park, and Shing Mun Valley swimming pool, the main pools are bigger in size and deeper. And there might be slanting where pools will add manpower in the light of such requirements. And for some design where there is natural sunlight leading to glare, that may affect the eyesight of our lifeguards, and we will increase manpower. So depending on the design and the utilization of a pool, If a pool is particularly popular, we will also add manpower. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. So all the government has got all its logic wrong. So you say there's a problem with crowd management. So you're going to buy a special vehicle at $9 million each. You can do it. So you should improve your arrangement in the light of actual circumstances. I'm sure most of you go to your own private pools in your housing development to swim. Is okay. I have got friends who live in luxury apartments in Kowloon West, and their lifeguard there faces a swimming pool with no swimmer at all. Have you been to a pool in at Kowloon Park? Paul Tang, would you go with me to a swimming pool and take a look? The crux of the matter is, you told us that you've got an establishment. When there is no vacancy, the establishment works. The problem is the staff in your establishment has a problem. You cannot have full strength, or sometimes you have to close down a pool when there is not enough lifeguards. That lady has made it very well. You will not compromise public safety. Of course, that's why swimming pools are suspended.
John Zhang has asked you to act according to the 011 envelope. So, well, close your pools. And if people take leave, if they don't report for duty, of course, you would close the pool and you don't sacrifice safety, but you sacrifice the service, right? You can't explain why the establishment is there and yet you cannot deliver. What are you saying? If your husband doesn't give you sufficient money to maintain the household, and then he asks you to make one less dish, of course you can do it. You can buy cheaper stuff and make one fewer dish. Of course you can do it. Either safety is compromised or service is compromised, and still you say it's okay. Then what can I say? And also, Miss Anissa Wong, I met her in the corridor. And who is she now? She is the PS for the environment. She was the one who was here to explain why the post should be cut. And she suspected that some worms were put into the pool water by staff. This kind of official was promoted. Is it that whoever does a messy job in government will get promoted? The thing is who you know and you get promoted. It's not what you know. Maybe people don't like her so much. They dumped her with Wong Kam Sing, the Environment Bureau, because Wong Kam Sing dares not say anything. What kind of official system is this? The bad officials who hurt the interests of the lifeguards was promoted. The official who degraded the service for swimmers was promoted. And John Zhang is at the top of all this. He is asking you to go by the 011 envelope system, so you have to cut expenditure by 1%. I am the only one here who does not work with trade unions, but I stand on the side of the labor sector. Who else is speaking on their behalf? Do we have pro-establishment members here? We are talking about the civil service. How can you do your monitoring job? You say I'm box office poison because I filibuster. If that's the case, I want to poison you to death because you can't face reality. Who is speaking up for the workers? Paul Tang, you only act with expediency because you can always go back to the civil service. How come you cannot have extraordinary ways to tackle an extraordinary matter? The lifeguards are rescuing Hong Kong people's lives. The thermometer is maybe failing, and you mean people should be subject to heat strokes and die? I mean, you can't just act by a system. All right, we have Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen in the third round. We have to manage the time. 5 minutes as well. After the third round, we'll conclude our meeting. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen, I'm very concerned about the 011 envelope system. I think it's already being implemented. Some swimming pools will be opened only on the 16th of April, not the 1st of April this year. And you have issued a press release saying that the non-heated pools will only be opened on the 16th of April. And is this related to the 011 envelope system? Ms. Lee, you did not answer me this question. The 21 pools is just there to pull wool over our eyes because they are just converted from NCNC, so there is no increase overall. Maybe through you would like to ask for supplementary written information. We need a table detailing the 2004 manpower situation, including civil servant posts and also NCSC posts, and also the number of pools and beaches in action. So we know the change over the last 10 years. As I said, I hope there will be a supplementary written paper. Would you like to respond now? Yes, Ms. Lee. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to talk about the requirement for civil servants lifeguards. We would look at the operational need of our water sports centers and beaches and pools throughout the year. Beaches and pools are better patronized in the summer. We can see seasonal change in the usage of such places. Therefore, we have increased the recruitment of seasonal lifeguards to tackle the peak season. So we won't base our recruitment on the need in the peak season, or else there would be a big surplus in the winter. This is not in line with the principle of making the best use of public money. However, if we cannot fill all the seasonal posts, the department will have to think of taking targeted measures in order to boost recruitment. As I said, we are going to increase the pay for seasonal lifeguards at beaches. And also, we also have a training program for lifeguards beach so that they will come to receive training. We will subsidize them when they apply for life-saving awards, and then there will be subsistence given when they go through the 4-week training program, and then they will sit the examination and they will eventually become beach seasonal lifeguards. And we have also streamlined the recruitment process. After completing the contract, seasonal lifeguards can be taken up as hourly rated seasonal lifeguards. These are targeted measures in order to boost the level of seasonal lifeguards. Mr. Lee mentioned the 21 civil service posts. They are to serve 2 pools, one at Tung Chung, the other one in Lai Chi Kok. The 2 pools are heated, so they are used round the year, and that is why we have boosted the level of manpower, and we provide civil service lifeguards there. They used to have seasonal lifeguards, but with the addition of these 21 civil service lifeguards, the seasonal lifeguards will be deployed to other pools. Also, I'd like to add another point. For non-heated pools, there is a new measure this year. If in a complex there are heated and non-heated pools, we have reviewed the usage rate. The heated pools will still be open in April. And therefore, the outdoor pools will have a low usage rate. In the same complex, people would then prefer the heated indoor pools. That is why we have decided to delay the opening of outdoor pools to the 16th of April. This is according to the principle of the best use of public money. This is not about clawing back services. I think this is a direct effect of the 011 envelope system. In fact, I did not need a reply. I hope the SCS has heard my comments. Chairman, I'd like to say when I conclude that you look at the yearly demand in order to create civil service posts, and then you would recruit seasonal lifeguards. But then the fact is you cannot recruit seasonal lifeguards. It is just natural because people can get a job for the whole year in the private market. What can you do about the civil servants in the winter? They can become trainers. They can teach people to swim and prepare people to apply for beach lifeguard awards. I think you can think of ways to deploy civil servants in the winter. I think you should have more civil servants posts. You just cannot rely on a seasonal recruitment program. There are so many private pools outside, and they have taken up all the manpower. That is because the SMW has been implemented. Okay. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, if you have a question, please be brief because of time constraint, 2 minutes. As I said, the CMAB doesn't have to organize elections every year, so why does it not cut manpower in non-election years? This is the logic. But your logic is funny. You know that the market has changed. Private pools are going by stricter standards, and people provide service with a contract that is very comprehensive. And yet you still talk about seasonal lifeguards. Okay, it looks like you have some logic. I understand you want to save public money, but you are not solving the problem. When you can't find the people in the market, then you have to do something to intervene. You cannot compromise either safety or service. Do your job well until you can recruit enough people. I have been a casual worker myself. I, in fact, would earn more. I need to earn more than the permanents because I may not be able to work tomorrow. I may not have a job tomorrow. How many of you have been employers in the private market? Come on, how many of you have worked in the private market? If somebody can rely on casual work to survive and not ask for a higher pay than the permanents, I mean, people won't take up casual work if they are not paid more on a daily rate than the permanents. Don't just tell me about the market. Use common sense. Are you talking? I won't be so irritated if you don't talk about market forces. You just can't sit with your arms folded. Casual workers wait for work from day to day, and they need to get more on the day they work because they can't expect to have work tomorrow. You can't pretend to be a businessman when you are a civil servant, and the businessmen, of course, are colluding with government. That's all. Okay, I think your remarks are heard. The item has been discussed and members have asked questions, and we need some supplementary information from the government. If there is nothing else, AOB, if there is nothing under AOB, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.